hard work going into mental health services here locally. A lot of focus on like, hey, let's not just like throw these people that are mentally ill in jail over and over again. Let's see if we can find some programs that fit for them. And that stuff is not going to happen overnight. That's what all those officials will tell you over and over again. Like, this change is not going to happen overnight because it's just such an embedded thing in culture everywhere now. Um, you know, Poverty leads to trauma, and just they're just closely associated, which sometimes comes with drug use, and it's so sad. So how do we get people out of that cycle? And sometimes it's harder than incarcerating people, you know?
Yeah, that's the easy way. Is you just it's out of sight, out of mind. If you can just lock them up, but that doesn't help anybody. I mean, it is the homeless issue. It's a real problem. Like you can't just let people stay out on the street, and it's really crazy in LA. I was down in LA a few weeks ago, and they have like cardboard buildings, plywood buildings that they've made. They've got like generators, and it's just out on the sidewalk, and there's needles everywhere, and you're walking around like this is not good for them. It's not good for people out and like this is just not good. Like we
Yeah.
need to fix this.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I think there's some money going towards that right now, or at least proposals for more money going towards finding housing for them. This Arkley thing, are you following that?
No, I'm not.
So it just made the news. I think it was probably last week, but the Eureka City Council has been moving forward on a number of like parking lots that they're going to transition into affordable housing.
Okay, yeah, I think I caught something about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and I guess Rob Arkley, who I'm sure you're familiar with as a Humboldt local,
Mm-hmm.
rich guy, wealthy guy, has got a lot of projects here in Humboldt County. He's got his hand in a lot of pies, so to speak. He does not want these local parking lots being transitioned into affordable housing. So, I mean, where would you stand on that? I mean,
What is his reason for not wanting it?
I guess just um, I'd have to listen to his interview. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't I wouldn't speak on his behalf
Yeah.
properly, but I suppose it'd have something to do with NIMBY, not my backyard. Like maybe Old Town isn't a good place for that. They don't want those types of people um, along the main drag of the road. I suppose that's what he'd want. He doesn't want the nearby businesses, and that's probably his perspective. But there's also these subtle nuances of the project that people aren't quite understanding, which is, every parking lot that they're taking, they're basically replacing the parking taken somewhere else nearby. It has to be nearby, and the people that qualify for affordable housing, I mean, they have to follow the rules and regulations of HUD. So it's not just the run of the mill people that you see that are in really bad shape that are qualifying for these houses. They're people that have to pay rent still, and they can be evicted for drugs, and they can be evicted for causing disturbances and stuff like that. And it's kind of nerdy, but I always talk about J.K. Rowling. You familiar?
Yeah, Harry
Yeah,
Potter.
Harry Potter author. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great story of her. She was living in her car when she was writing
Was
Harry
she
Potter.
really?
Yeah. I mean, and she had government assistance, and um, she got a little help up, and now look at her. She's really wealthy. She steps into it every once in a while. Um, you know.
Yeah, what was the last one? The transgender
Yeah,
comments?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, props to all my LGBTQ people. You don't need to be stepping into this territory railing. I don't know. I was just like, I didn't see why she even got herself involved in that. But
I think providing housing is important. I think it's also important that they have, strict rules on drug use. And I know some people think that you need to provide housing first and then you can address drug use and address the trauma. But I think they're kind of in parallel. You need to help them at the same time. Because if you bring somebody in, uh, I don't know. I just think that drug use. I think people should be allowed to use drugs if they want. If you want to use drugs recreationally and it doesn't affect your life and it doesn't affect where you want to go or what you want to do, I think that's great. It's not my business. You can do whatever you want to do. I think as long as you're not hurting somebody else, have at. I think that's part of free will. Like, do what you want to do. And if you can maintain a positive life by your definition and it doesn't hurt anybody, that's great.
Yeah.
That's what life's about.
Well, yeah. I mean, it all comes down to education, right?
Yeah.
It's like you should be educated about what you're putting into your body.
Yes. But
It's
I
like the
think if
vaccine thing right now. People
yeah,
want to be educated
that's a
about what
good
they're
point.
putting into their body.
Yeah.
But
But I think if you're going into these government programs and the point is to help you rise above the circumstances that you're currently in, whether it's homelessness or whatever it is, I think that you need to really focus on that. And I don't know if you can do drugs and still try to address the circumstance. You know, does that make sense?
yeah, yeah. I mean, and
I
if
just think it creates too much tension. If you're homeless and you're doing drugs and then you're in this program, I think it just creates too much contention, I guess. And but
a
I
lot
don't
of it's
know. I
trauma
mean,
related too,
that's the
right?
problem is how do
Yeah.
you get people to stop doing drugs if they were molested as a kid or raped and doing drugs as a coping mechanism so that they don't have to feel that? Like how do you take that away from somebody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see
That's
that
what
a
I don't
lot on
know.
social media, like you were talking about, where people are just like, "Oh, screw all the screw all the meth heads of Eureka." And it's like it's not like that, like believe me, I've had my share of annoyances in Eureka of people just screaming outside of my office naked and cops coming and picking them up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we've all seen that and it's not fun. It's annoying, you know? But blanket statements about those folks, it's like, it's not helpful because it's like you don't know their past, they probably never wanted to look like ridiculous idiots. They had terrible lives that got them there, and it's not always like, oh, I'm going to make a decision to fuck my life up. It's not always that simple. They never like hit a crossroads and they're like, Yale or fucking meth and Eureka. It was never like that, you know. And a lot of these folks just didn't have the opportunity. Um, so how do we give those people better lives? And I think it starts with children, and it starts with how we educate our children, and it starts with parenting too. How do we parent our children? Are we doing the best in the world at that? I don't think so. I mean, we have a long way to go in terms of drug use, in terms of school shootings. There are a lot of problems in our country that we really need to address, and a lot of it comes from how we parent, and a lot of it comes down to how do we protect our young, and how do we, you know, provide lives without trauma to them.
I don't think people really want to address it though. I think that's why we're kind of in this cluster of where we are right now where we have so many problems is because it's going to be a lot of work and it's going to take time and people have to have a longer attention span than we currently are showing that we have. Like we need to pick a problem and deal with it until it's done. Whether it's the homeless, whether it's mental trauma, whether it's prison reform, which is another huge issue, like we have to pick a problem, see it through, and then move on to the next. But nobody wants to do that. It's all posturing of, oh, we're gonna throw money at this problem, or we're gonna posture that we're gonna deal with this problem, but nobody sees it through to the end, and then it's still a problem 6 months from now
Yeah.
or 12 months from now.
I know a lot of people can like walk and chew gum at the same time. There's a lot of people that, would say, hey, why can't we address all of these problems? And I hope that we can get there one day. But it's true. It's like whenever you're growing up and you want to be really good at fucking everything, and then you just do everything a little bit,
And
and you
it
never get
sucks.
good at anything.
Yeah.
There is something to be said about, okay, well, let's prioritize what's worst, right now, and let's fix that, and then let's move on to the next worst thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there are real problems in the world, real problems in the States, globally. I mean, you could take your pick and say, oh, this is a problem. There's no shortage,
Mm-hmm.
but there is a shortage of people who are willing to acknowledge what the real problem is and put in the work to address it, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yeah, and I think the greatest thing that we can do, as podcasters with, like our listeners, we don't have a million listeners. We have some. Some people tune into us. The best thing that we can do is try to not only educate them, but engage them with their community, and also give them a reason to want to care. You know, we can sit here and talk about homeless people in Eureka all we want, but how do we get those people off their asses doing something? You know, how do we get people that come away from our show saying, you know what, like, I think the next time I go on a walk, I'm going to bring a plastic bag and start like picking up trash along the way. How do we get people to do that? You know, and how do we get people to encourage other people to do that? I think that would be an amazing thing. Is like, oh wow, every podcast that we put out, hopefully they like walk away saying, oh, you know what, I'm gonna go donate blood, or you know, I just like everybody can do something. You know, so maybe we can stop throwing our litter out the car whenever we're driving or something like that. You know what I mean? There's just all these little things that we can do as a community to preserve what Humboldt County is really. I mean, this is a pristine place that we really need to like make sure that, you know, we take care of the environment here and we take care of our people, and that we keep our people safe, and that you know, they feel like they can thrive too in terms of business, which, gosh, man, like I said, like tourists are going to start flooding here. Like our housing prices are just through the
It's
roof right
crazy.
now.